I'm going to call the meeting to order. Bienvenue à la réunion numéro 140.
Welcome to meeting number 145 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083H and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, October 29th, 2024, the committee is resuming its study of privacy breaches at the Canada Revenue Agency. I would like to welcome our witnesses for the first hour.
Block. I want to welcome Mr. Peter Davis, who is the Associate Vice President of Government and Stakeholder Relations. Mr. Davis, welcome to committee. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee, and then we'll be following that with questions. Go ahead, sir.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee members for the opportunity to appear on behalf of H&R Block Canada today. And I do appreciate the committee's patience and flexibility in accommodating my schedule. This year, H&R Block Canada is proud to be celebrating our 60th anniversary, helping Canadians with their taxes and receiving their benefits. Back in 1964, H&R Block Canada's first tax office was established in Toronto, and our national headquarters is proudly located in Calgary today. Throughout our 60 years in Canada, our company has grown to nearly 1,000 locations and 10,000 H&R Block Canada associates, serving Canadians in every corner of the country during tax season. I'd like to reiterate some key points from our earlier November 15 statement and our December 6 submission to the committee. Throughout our more than 6 decades of operation, H&R Block Canada has placed the utmost priority on ensuring the protection and privacy of our clients' tax information. H&R Block Canada is proud of our retail office's privacy framework, which is among the best in Canada. We understand the important responsibilities and obligations that come with safeguarding Canadians' personal information, and we have robust security systems and processes in place to protect this information. Given H&R Block Canada's commitment to data privacy and security, when we became aware of the incident involving our e-file credentials, we immediately conducted a comprehensive internal investigation and concluded that H&R Block Canada's data, systems, and software were not compromised, nor are we aware of any impact to our clients. I would also like to assure this committee that H&R Block Canada has never sent any Canadians' personal data, including pixels, to companies such as Google and Meta. While we are aware of past media reports in the U.S. regarding this issue, we can also confirm that the pixel usage described in those reports does not apply to H&R Block Canada clients. I would also like to assure this, allow me to take a moment to speak on behalf of our broader industry. As co-chair of Tax Filer Empowerment Canada, the National Trade Association for Canada's tax preparation and software industry, I believe it is important to articulate the critical role of industry tax software in helping safeguard the personal information of Canadians. Tax software developed by industry for use by taxpayers directly or by tax professionals on behalf of their clients must undergo intense certification by CRA each year in order to be approved for use by the public and to be authorized for electronic filing of tax returns to CRA. Tax software providers must also ensure their products and services are compliant with Canadian privacy and data security legislation. These factors, along with industry innovation and ongoing investment to continuously enhance and evolve data security, afford Canadians many diverse industry options to choose from, where they can feel safe providing their personal information. Diversification mitigates cybersecurity risk, as threat actors have to attempt infiltrating several different secure IT systems, as opposed to just one system administered by CRA. With this in mind, along with the fact that CRA is a high-value target to threat actors that has experienced previous security breaches, the notion that taxpayers' information will be safer if it is solely controlled and managed by CRA through automatic filing or any type of government tax filing does not have credible basis. Before we move to questions that committee members may have, I would like to raise the following. This proceeding is very likely being monitored by threat actors, seeking opportunities to identify and exploit potential data security intelligence for criminal gain. As the largest assisted tax preparation company in Canada, H&R Block Canada closely monitors and defends against attempted cyber threats on a regular basis. Accordingly, any statements we provide as an organization regarding cybersecurity must be careful not to reveal sensitive information that could give threat actors any intelligence to assist with their criminal activities. Further, we are bound by Canadian privacy legislation and H&R Block Canada's client privacy and data security policies to ensure that no personal information of Canadian taxpayers is disclosed. Thank you again, Mr. Chair and committee members, for inviting me to appear today on behalf of H&R Block Canada, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that you may have to the best of my ability.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Davis. And we're going to start with 6-minute rounds of questioning. Mr. Caputo is going to lead us off. Go ahead, Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for being here, and thank you for your opening statement. What I took from that is that we're dealing with obviously a massive data privacy breach here. That's what really brings us to Parliament today. Is it fair to say that it's your position that this was not on H&R Block and this was solely on CRA?
As I mentioned, thank you for the question. As I mentioned in my statement and in earlier submissions to the committee, H&R Block Canada, when we were notified by CRA that there was a compromise of our e-file credentials, we immediately launched a comprehensive investigation, and we left no stone unturned. And throughout the course of that investigation and upon its conclusion, there was no evidence to suggest that H&R Block Canada's systems, software, or security apparatuses had been compromised in any way. As to where this compromise may have taken place, H&R Block Canada can't say for sure, other than we know it was not within our organization.
Thank you. Now, are you familiar with how things are done in the United States as in Canada, as I understand it? It's essentially between H&R Block and CRA. There isn't a lot of information sharing when it comes to cyber issues, but the United States does it a little bit differently. Are you familiar with all of that?
Just only at a cursory level, just here in my capacity today representing H&R Block Canada and our operations here in Canada. But I am familiar with some high-level aspects of collaboration between IRS and the tax preparation industry in the United States, such as the Security Summit, which is an annual gathering of both industry and IRS to share best practices about cybersecurity, talk about potential threats to the extent that that's possible and appropriate.
Now, you spoke about collaboration. Is it your view that that sort of collaboration that you just described, does that happen in Canada?
It doesn't currently happen in Canada, and it is something that our company and industry has recommended to CRA in the past, and we continue to recommend that to the extent possible, we would like to see more collaboration between the agency and the industry to combat fraud and any other type of cybersecurity threats.
Do you know how long you've been recommending greater collaboration with CRA to address these increasing cyber threats?
It's come up in industry conversations with CRA off and on over the last, I would say, approximately 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Can I ask, what has CRA's response been?
They have always expressed receptiveness to the idea. I think one of the challenges that CRA has communicated to us with that concept is how can something like that be put together and still respect Canadian data privacy legislation. And so that our understanding is CRA is looking into that, and hopefully once we have a clearer picture of what may be possible, we can potentially explore moving that forward.
On behalf of H&R Block, do you see that as an impediment?
Do I see what is an impediment?
Just what you just described, the protection of privacy as an impediment to greater collaboration. If that's CRA's issue, what I'm saying is, do you agree with them in that regard?
Well, I would say that to the extent that it's preventing CRA from being able to collaborate where appropriate with industry and with our organization, then yes, it would be an impediment.
Okay. Now, in terms of the data breach, the information sharing, and the cyber threats that bring us here today, do you feel that there was any area in which CRA did not act as quickly as it could?
I'm not in a position to answer that, just given that we did not have line of sight into CRA's investigation and most of their mitigating measures that they may have employed. So I'm not able to answer that with any accuracy.
Do you feel that their communication with H&R Block was done in a timely manner?
Yes, In terms of notifying us when this incident may have began, yes, that communication, I believe, did happen in an expedient manner.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left?
Minute and a half, Mr.
Okay.
Trudeau.
So I want to get into that a little bit more. When is your understanding of when the breaches came to light, and when was H&R Block notified?
So we were notified in April of this year. I'm not able to disclose the exact date, just for security purposes, but we were notified in April of this year, and immediately upon being notified, we launched our investigation into our systems, software, and security apparatuses.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, did any of your clients have any losses as a result of this?
We are not aware of any impact to our clients as a result of this incident.
Okay. And do you know exactly how many clients were impacted by this?
We do not know how many Canadians may have been impacted by this, no.
Okay. Do you have an estimate even?
No, nothing that is based on anything factual, so.
Okay. Have you made safety recommendations to CRA based on what happened on your end?
Yes, we did provide a series of recommendations to CRA in August of this year. And our understanding is that CRA is continuing to review them, and we're looking forward to engaging with them as soon as we possibly can.
Okay. Has CRA given you an update as to whether or not they will be accepting them, where the progress is? I mean, my concern is this. We're now in December. These are made in August. We don't want to be in a situation where we're here again. So I'm just wondering.
Mr. Caputo,
Okay.
I'm sorry, time's
that's
up. Mr. Fisher, go ahead for 6, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Peter. Nice to meet you today. Thanks for being here. Some of the things that are asked might be things that were asked and phrased in different ways, but are all going to be about the same topic. So I'm interested, the letter that you sent to our committee, you said, and I quote, or H&R Block Canada said, and I quote, H&R Block Canada's data, systems, software, and security measures have not been compromised. I'm interested in when you talk about the codes that are assigned to your tax preparer offices. Tell me a little bit, tell the committee a little bit about your internal strategies, your policies to ensure that there is security for those codes.
Okay, thank you for the question. I will attempt to answer that to the extent possible, just given that I'm unable to share quite a few specifics just in relation to this question, just given that it does bump up against our security and client privacy policies. But what I can say is that e-file IDs are issued by CRA to tax preparer offices, and the expectation is that those IDs are treated with the utmost confidentiality.
Have you had any issues? Any issues with those codes?
No.
Never
no,
had
not.
never had a leak of those codes?
No.
How do you guarantee that your staff might not be the source of the leak that we're talking about today?
That was part of the investigation that we undertook, and as I mentioned earlier, we left no stone unturned. We did a comprehensive review of just about everything that's relating to e-file ID credentials and how they are used within our organization. And there was no evidence to suggest that our staff were in any way involved or responsible for what took place.
How do you, when you're sourcing out new staff, do you do criminal record checks and things like that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do criminal background checks on all of our associates.
So everyone that comes in, or only the people that would deal with these codes?
Everyone that comes in.
Tell me a little bit about your recruiting process when you're going out to search for new folks. Training process, is that, could you maybe tell us a little bit about
Sure.
how you would train these folks up to be in a position where they understand the importance of being in possession of this taxpayer information, this data?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So each year we have what's called H&R Block Canada's Tax Academy, and starting in and around the late summer, we begin taking applications from interested Canadians who want to take our training and become tax associates with us. And through that process, we teach them all about the tax code, how to work with Canadians in preparing and filing their taxes, and we also spend time talking about security measures and how to ensure that taxpayer data is being treated with the utmost confidentiality at all times. And this also includes information that is required in order to electronically file returns to CRA. So there's quite a bit of training on that end. And then for those individuals who we do choose to hire from our tax academy, we also provide additional training to them before they start with us preparing and filing taxes in our offices. So there's quite a bit of security and privacy training, and that's held annually for all of our staff every year.
And I assume that would be the norm within the industry for third parties, private sector organizations?
I can't speak for all organizations, but it's certainly a norm for H&R Block Canada.
Okay, so when H&R Block Canada transmits a tax return to the CRA on behalf of the Canadian taxpayer, obviously through e-file, from your end, how do you ensure that the data is secure?
So that information is transmitted through tax software, which is certified by the Canada Revenue Agency. We have to go, every tax software developer, including H&R Block Canada, has to undergo a rigorous certification process with CRA every year to ensure that our tax software meets a number of CRA requirements. But in addition to that, we also have to make sure that tax software also complies with all data privacy and data security legislation. And so there's a very comprehensive process that goes into ensuring that that tax software is safe and secure for Canadians to use.
Have you had any breaches of any kind at H&R Block Canada of your clients' data?
I'm unable to talk about any specifics around privacy breaches just due to our data security and privacy policies. But what I can say is that...
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead on your point of order.
Mr. Chair, perhaps Mr. Davis isn't familiar with parliamentary proceedings or the powers of committee to demand testimony. He doesn't have the ability, unfortunately, to sit behind some kind of pseudo-client solicitor privilege. He's here before Parliament. He has to answer parliamentary questions. And so I would just ask that you apprise him of what his responsibilities are before committee.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Green. I understand the sensitive nature, Mr. Davis, of the security systems, the mechanisms that are in place within H&R Block, and you made that very clear in your opening statement. I would ask that you do answer the questions to the best of your ability. Yes, we are covered by parliamentary privilege, but we certainly don't want to put at risk, and I would agree with you on this, any proprietary issues within H&R Block that could cause problems. So I'm going to direct you in that way. Mr. Green, I hope you understand that when the request was made to have H&R Block come before the committee, that there wasn't a specific individual that was asked to come. H&R Block has sent Mr. Davis as a representative, and I am satisfied that he's answering the questions to the best of his ability, given the nature of what we're dealing with. I've stopped your time, Mr. Fisher, when the point of order was issued, so you've got a minute left.
Okay. Can you confirm, you may have already said this, but can you confirm that all of H&R Block Canada's client data is stored solely on servers 100% in Canada?
So our client data, in terms of how that information is stored, and this is all disclosed to our clients, and we do obtain their consent. There are instances where client data may be sent to the United States to our parent company, H&R Block, and those instances would include if that was required in order to provide the client with a specific product or service, or in some cases to notify them if there may be some products and services that that they may wish to avail themselves to. But that data is just largely, it is stored there, and it is not included in any pixels or anything else that that could be provided to other parties.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you.
Monsieur Villemure, commencez, s'il vous plaît. Mr. I hope, can you put your piece in, please? Make sure that it's on French translation. and that the volume is turned up so that you can, sorry, English translation. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. And just make sure that the volume is up so you can hear it. Okay. Monsieur Villemure, pour 6 minutes. Commencez. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup, M. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Davies, for being with us today. I will not repeat the questions from my colleagues, which were all very relevant, but I will talk about privacy issues. Can you describe to us, H&R Block Canada, what kinds of policies do you have in terms of protecting people's privacy?
Can I ask that the question just be repeated? The last part just cut out a little bit there.
Oui, si vous pouviez nous
If you can please describe to us the policy you have when it comes to protecting people's privacy.
Yes, thank you for the question. And so we have a number of client privacy policies in place at H&R Block Canada. I think the one that I'd like to highlight for the committee is what we call our privacy assurance form. And so this is what we consider to be a gold standard amongst the industry here in Canada. And so we take the time to sit down with our clients in our offices and explain to them how their data is being used by H&R Block Canada and why. And so we take great considerations in limiting the use of the data to just ensure that it's used for what the client needs in order to have the products and services that they expect. And so we sit down, we talk through how this data is used, and we talk about a number of provisions related to it, and we seek the client's consent in order to proceed as we've laid out. And what makes our privacy assurance policy a little unique is that each year, when our clients come back to see us in following tax seasons, we will also walk through any changes to that privacy insurance form. It's very important to us that our clients understand the importance that we place on protecting their data, and we want them to be informed and comfortable with the processes that we have in place to protect their personal information.
So you might be familiar with the GDPR, so the EU legislation on data protection. So your gold standard, is it up to the same level, or would it be up to the level that is required by Canadian legislation?
It is, thank you. It is certainly what is required by Canadian legislation. I don't know offhand for sure if it's also compliant with GDPR. I will follow up in writing once I get some confirmation on that.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Vous parliez à l'instant.
Great, thank you. You were talking about getting people's consent. Do you believe that your client at H&R Block, do they understand what they are really consenting to?
Thank you for the question. We take great pains at H&R Block Canada to make sure that our clients do really understand how we use their information in order to provide them the products and services that they expect. And so our tax professionals across Canada are trained to really invest the time and really sit down and explain in plain language what our privacy protections and what our privacy protections look like and what our data policies are. And so I can say with a high level of confidence that our clients do have a good understanding of how their data is used.
OK. Souvent, les formulaires de consent.
Because often consent forms is just one page and it's in legalese. That's why I wanted to ask the question. How much time will you keep a client's data after their taxes are filed?
So we will keep their information as per statutory requirements, which I believe is the tax year and then 6 years in addition to that, and so 7 years. And then I'm not aware of any other retention that we do beyond that, but I will confirm that and follow up with the committee in writing.
Et au bout de la période de rétention, comment?
At the end of the retention period, how do you dispose of the data coming from people's tax declarations?
Thank you for the question. We undergo a very comprehensive process to ensure that all personal information, once it's no longer required to be retained, is completely destroyed. And it's very comprehensive.
Est-ce que vous pourriez nous décrire la...
Can you describe how you go about doing that?
I probably cannot provide much more information on that, just given our data security and privacy policy, I'm afraid. I will check with our office to see if there's any more details that we may be able to provide, and I will follow up in writing on that.
D'accord. Tout à fait.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, merci, Monsieur Ville.
Thank you, Mr. Villemure.
Clear, Mr. Davis. The clerk has been noting the answers where you will be following up in writing, and then she's going to follow up with you to ensure that that information does come to the committee. And that, I mean, that is a reasonable compromise that the committee can deal with when it comes to sensitive information, providing it in confidence to the committee as well. So, okay, Mr. Green, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Davis, you'd referenced that in your opening remarks that H&R Block has never sent any client's personal information, personal data, including pixels, to companies such as Google and Meta. You referenced, of course, that this is H&R Block Canada. Can you describe, for the purpose of this committee, who actually owns the proprietary data that H&R Block has? The Canadian subsidiary or the American parent company?
When you say proprietary data, you mean exactly what?
The personal information of your clients, sir. You mentioned that some of it goes down to the States. Would it not venture that as a subsidiary of H&R Block Incorporated in Missouri, that all of the information would be owned by the parent company as well?
So we don't own the information that Canadians provide us. It is between H&R Block Canada and our clients. And so I want to be careful how I answer your question, though, because I don't know all of the ins and outs and legalities of who would actually be ultimately the holder of that information. So if you don't mind,
I'll put this to you, sir. Mr. Davis, I have limited time. I'll take my time back. You referenced specifically H&R Block Canada has never sent clients' personal data, including pixels, to companies such as Google and Meta. And yet in July of 2023, a United States Senate investigation determined that H&R Block most likely disclosed consumers' return information to Meta in violation of Section 22, subsection 6713 and 7216 by embedding Meta's Pixel within H&R Block's mobile and website tools that consumers use to prepare for their personal tax returns. Sir, are you familiar with the current class action lawsuit being filed against H&R Block in the United States?
Yes, so we take the security of our clients' personal information.
I just asked you if you were aware of it.
I am aware of it.
If you're aware of it.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're aware that that lawsuit comes under the RICO laws, which is Racketeering, Influenced, or Corrupt Organizations Act, against the tax preparation company, your parent company, and Meta. So this is a practice that has been established by your parent corporation, and yet it's your testimony here with a surety that H&R Block Canada has never sent any clients' personal information. Can you make that assurance on the record here today in this committee that the same can't be said for your parent company in the States?
Well, I'm here in my capacity as a representative of H&R Block Canada, here to talk about our Canadian clients and Canadian taxpayers. And I can say with certainty that their data is not shared with companies like Google and Meta.
By H&R Block Canada?
Correct.
That wasn't my question. My question is, can you make that same assurance on behalf of your parent company, which is currently under investigation for the very same practices that you're being accused of here in Canada? Can you make that assurance to us?
So when it comes to the data of our Canadian clients, neither H&R Block Canada or H&R Block are disclosing that data to companies like Google and Meta.
So that only happened in the United States of America?
I can't speak to where it may have happened. I'm here in my capacity as a representative of H&R Block Canada. What I can say with certainty is that our Canadian clients' data was not involved in any sharing whatsoever with companies like Google and Meta, whether by H&R Block Canada or H&R Block.
But you are familiar that a Senate hearing determined that in the United States?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So it's not a wild assertion that you would also be doing the same practices, given that you're a subsidiary of a parent company that's being accused of the same thing.
we're not sharing any Canadians' data with companies like Google or Meta at H&R Block Canada or H&R Block.
I have a question. It's a consumer question, and it's related to the FTC's action that stopped H&R Block's unfair downgrading practices and deceptive promises from free filing. Do you also offer this same type of free filing here in Canada?
I can't speak on specific filing products and services by H&R Block. I can speak a little bit about what we do offer here at H&R Block Canada.
Sir, I'm going to ask you the question. Are you familiar that the FTC, that your parent company, was required to pay $7 million to consumers?
I am familiar with the action by the FTC.
And so I'm asking you if the product that is just resulted in a settlement there is also offered here in Canada.
No, it is not.
Okay, that will suffice for my round of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. That concludes the first round. We're now going to go to the second round. We've got 5 minutes, and Mr. Chambers is going to kick it off. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Davis, thank you for coming. I apologize for missing your earlier round. Someone has played a funny trick on me this holiday season, and they sent the Minister of CRA at the same time to the Finance Committee, so that's where I was for the first few minutes. I just want to bring me back to the issue at hand here. Does H&R Block Canada have obligations under the Privacy Act, the Federal Privacy Commissioner and the Federal Privacy Act?
Yes, with respect to the issue the committee.
Just in general?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And so under that act, if there is a data breach, since H&R Block would be kind of governed under the provisions of that act or subject to the provisions of that act, if there was a data breach, H&R Block would be required to, if it was known to them, report on that data breach to the Privacy Commissioner. There's a reporting regime.
That is correct, yes.
That's right. And to my knowledge, there has not been a report from H&R Block to the Privacy Commissioner with respect to any breaches, including the ones that were in the news recently. Is that correct?
Yes. Given that our investigation, once we were informed by CRA of the incident involving our e-file credentials, after we commenced our investigation immediately after learning about it, we went through a comprehensive investigative process, and its conclusion pointed to no evidence of any breach of our systems or software or security apparatuses at H&R Block Canada. So as a result, there was no requirement or basis for us to report anything to the Privacy Commissioner.
Right. So I assume with your parent company, you obviously, not only do you invest a lot of resources in terms of treasure into cyber security and privacy breaches, but that you would share information about potential schemes or frauds that are perpetrated on various tax authorities, say in Canada and the U.S. Like you're aware of some of the things that happen and how people's accounts do get hacked, correct?
Well, we are aware from what we see in the media sources that we monitor in a lot of cases. It's not typical for CRA to share that type of information with industry as of yet, and of course, there's also some information sharing between H&R Block and H&R Block Canada Inc. when it comes to cybersecurity.
And so, I mean, in an effect, privacy, and I think I'm getting from your testimony, people's personal information, their tax information, but more importantly, their private personal information, that is a core principle of what, guides you as an organization, right? So, I mean, you have a lot on the line in order to protect people's personal information, but their privacy in general.
Absolutely. We've been doing taxes in Canada for our clients for over 60 years, and so data protection and privacy of our clients' information is absolutely paramount to what we do.
I won't ask you to answer this because it would potentially be unfair, but it is your business to keep people's information private and secure, and there have been a number of other examples of outright frauds perpetrated on CRA with a number of examples of fraud happening on the taxpayer, fraudulent schemes, things that are not audited correctly at CRA. And so the absence of you reporting anything to the Privacy Commissioner tells me that this issue is likely not one that is emanating from within H&R Block, but it could be an outside source. Whether that's a third party or maybe even within CRA, I'm not sure. I won't ask you to comment because I think that might put you in a difficult position. But when you have CRA that says, well, it's not us, but they have a list of kind of examples in the past of where they've had some challenges with fraud and protecting private information, that makes sense to me. I think your testimony is genuine, and I hope to the extent that you find any information that you will bring it forward. And can you just follow up? You mentioned about CRA not collaborating as much with industry, but that does happen in the U.S., correct?
My understanding is there's mechanisms for collaboration between the IRS and the tax preparation industry in the United States, namely the Security Summit. We don't have a similar mechanism here in Canada, and that is something that I would submit would be beneficial for
Thank you for
CRA
that
to
testimony,
consider.
Mr. Davis, and congratulations on 60 years in business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Chambers, Ms. Shanahan, 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. And I want to touch on a few things, but basically I want to make the distinction between why we're here now, having to do with that Fifth Estate report, that it was through fraudulent use of H&R Block's special credentials to access CRA, the CRA website, something that's been built up with private companies and the CRA over the last couple of decades, right, with the use of online filing. That somehow somebody got those credentials and they used them to change information, to pose to as imposters to access the CRA website. And the other bucket, which has to do with sharing of client information, private sharing of clients' private information. So on the first thing, I just find it curious, your lack of curiosity about how that came to be, your lack of cooperation, your company's lack of cooperation, because historically I think there has been tremendous cooperation between private tax preparer companies and the CRA to make sure that this wouldn't happen.
Well, I wouldn't say that there hasn't been cooperation. We have certainly, to the extent possible, throughout this incident, been in communication with CRA, and we have...
Mr. Davis, what would make the CRA say that it was H&R Block?
I'm sorry, the CRA say that it was H&R Block for...
Well, that's the report that we have, or that's they allege that hackers had obtained confidential data used by H&R Block, and that it had to do with the confidential credentials that the H&R Block uses to access the CRA. So someone somehow in H&R Block could be an employee, could be someone who had access, could be a third party, as Mr. Chambers alluded to, and I want to get to that in just a moment.
Okay, thank you. To be clear, we, as I mentioned earlier, we take the utmost of utmost seriousness the protection of our clients' personal information. And I just want to reiterate.
No, it's not the personal information. Somehow somebody got the hold of your codes.
Yes.
Because why would the CRA say that there was the H&R codes that were used?
So I was just going to get to that. And so our investigation did not suggest in any way, shape, or form that our systems were compromised or our security apparatuses or our software.
So your contention is that your codes were not used in this breach? That's
no,
your contention?
No, my contention is that H&R Block Canada and our software systems and security apparatuses were not compromised, and so we were not responsible for...
Okay, so you go back to that, but somebody could have still used your codes, left them sort of untouched, but used them, so that you would not know that they, in fact, had been used. It was CRA on the other side that said, these codes are being used.
Yes, and we've never heard from CRA in any way, shape, or form that they believe that this information was compromised by H&R Block Canada.
Okay, so we'll put that aside, because I really do think that it's important that there is cooperation amongst all parties in this regard now and in the future. But around the disclosure of personal information, in fact, it is in your website, and sorry, I do have to print things out because, I'm old school. But you do say, we do not disclose your personal information to third parties except as described in the privacy policy with your consent or as permitted required by law, and your personal information may be disclosed. So I take Mr. Villemur's point that people do not always know what they are consenting to. But here's what they're consenting to, that it be used by outside suppliers employed or retained by you or H&R Block US to perform certain services and functions, which include, of course, the processing of transactions, marketing, the instant refund processing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's there for others who want to read. I have a second copy if people want to read it. But also that this information would be used and stored in the United States and will be in addition to Canadian laws subject to the laws of the United States. But I think that that's something that many Canadians would not know, that their information is being stored in the United States, which can be an issue for some people.
We're past your time, Ms. Shanahan.
Mr. Chair,
I'm going to give you a chance to respond.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Go
you.
ahead, please.
I just would like to point out, as I mentioned earlier, that we take great pride in our client privacy framework that we have in our retail offices at H&R Block Canada. And so a big part of that is walking through with our clients through our privacy assurance form process exactly how their information is being used in order to provide the products and services that they expect. So the items that you were referring to are items that we do walk through with our clients. We make sure they understand what that means, and we make sure to get their consent.
Okay,
and so,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Monsieur Villemur, 2 minutes et 30 secondes, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Davis, I'll just give you some time so that you can readjust. So, breaches of client information, has it happened before at H&R Block?
Thank you for the question. I'm not able, due to our data security and privacy policy, I'm not able to discuss any sort of details about that particular subject matter. But what I can tell the committee...
Point of order?
No.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Green, on your point
Mr.
of
Chair,
order.
I don't think Mr. Davis quite understands what process he's in right now. This is not like a textbook, response that he can provide Parliament and not actually have to answer basic questions. If he's not comfortable answering these questions at committee, through you, Mr. Chair, I would request that he provide that to our committee in writing, if he's not wanting to do it on the record right now in front of the audience, for our consideration of this committee. We could then determine the worthiness of reporting on it, but he can't simply come here to committee, a parliamentary committee of the House of Commons, and refuse to answer basic questions.
Yeah, just let me deal with this, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Green, I fully agree with your assessment on that that these answers can be provided in writing to the committee if it is the desire of the committee to do so. If that's what you want to do, Mr. Green, if we want to provide information to the committee, we can certainly do that. I believe that Mr. Davis is sincere in his attempts to answer the committee's questions. And again, as I said earlier, I understand that there's also some sensitive nature, and if the nature of the questions are sensitive enough, then we can request a written response from Mr. Davis on these issues for the sake and benefit of the committee. And Mr. Barrett, on that point of order, on that point of order, go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
And Mr. Villemot, j'ai arrêté le temps aussi. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's happened a couple of times. I fully agree with Mr. Green's intervention. Obviously, the witness is required to provide a fulsome answer to the best of their ability to any of the questions that are put forward by members of the committee. As you said, Chair, it's up to the committee if we're willing to accept an answer in writing. That's the proposal of Mr. Green. I don't have any objection to that. It should be noted, though, that it remains the committee's prerogative on whether or not that information is held in confidence or if we publish that information. And so if it's in the, perhaps simply put, in the public interest. But certainly there is no discretion on the part of the witness to answer or not to answer the question. And while we don't have an objection to the response, we don't have an objection to the response to this question from Mr. Villemot being provided in writing. An answer must be provided.
Okay. I think based on the 2 points of orders, it's pretty clear where the committee stands on this, Mr. Davis. And I don't want to speak for other members of the committee, but if it's your contention that this information can be provided to the committee, then I would recommend that you do that, and the committee will dispose of it in whatever fashion it determines, based on how it affects this study for us as well, because this is a very serious issue for Canadians, and that's so I hope you understand that. Okay, there is another option for the committee too, and that is to go in camera and deal with this, but I don't really want to entertain that unless it's the will of the committee to do that. So, Mr. Green, are you okay with that?
Yeah, just on the point of order, and this isn't particular to Mr. Davis. I know he's here in his capacity, but I just want the committee to note on this point of order that this is a long-standing trend that we're now seeing when corporations send their public relations or their government relations people and not the president. So I think moving forward, what we need to do with this committee in order to get fulsome answers is actually have people who have the power and the discretion to speak on behalf of the corporation that it is we're speaking to. So I would ask that you take that into consideration for future invitations.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to be more specific when we do propose motions, who we want to come to the committee, to your point, Mr. Green. Correct? Okay. Monsieur Villemot, vous avez... Yeah.
Earlier point of order that was mentioned, I just wanted to clarify very quickly that if there ever was a situation where a breach of information would have occurred, our company would have been statutorily obligated to report.
Hold on. On n'a pas de traduction?
Des fois oui, des fois non.
Moi, je sais. Oui. Il faudrait entendre. Ça marche pas maintenant. It's not working at all. Peut-être c'est l'écouteur qui fonctionne pas. Sorry, Mr. Davis. I'm going to want to make sure that Mr. Villemot is hearing your point. And it's not. It's not really on the point of order. I've given you a little latitude on this one, Mr. Davis, just because we've been a little on less time than normal. Ça marche, monsieur? So if you want to just quickly state your point, the point you want to make.
Thank you very quickly. Yeah. So if there ever was a situation where information had been part of any type of breach, our organization would have been statutorily obligated to report that information to the Privacy Commissioner. So we're not trying to be evasive here in front of the committee, but we do have to also respect our privacy policies.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
J'ai commencé le temps, Monsieur Villemot, 2 minutes.
Mr. Villemot, you have 2 minutes. Thank you very much. So all of these elements were going to be part of my question. So what I will ask is, well, what actions did you take? For instance, did you go back and look whether similar situations had occurred in the past?
Thank you for the question. And you're referring to the incident with the e-file credentials specifically? Yes. So our investigation absolutely did address that piece as well, and there never has been an incident involving our e-file credentials in the past.
D'accord. Vous l'avez mentionné brièvement, mais
You briefly referred to it, but have you reported all breaches to the Privacy Commissioner of Canada?
I'm not an expert on reporting of privacy breaches, but what I can say is that if there was a situation where we were required to report something to the Privacy Commissioner, that absolutely would have taken place, yes.
OK. Est-ce que c'est possible de demander à votre équipe de nous fournir?
Could you go back to your team and ask them to provide us a written answer if these reportings have been done?
Yes. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, M. le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Green, 2.5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to go back to the opening statements around the idea of private sector breaches and security. During his appearance on the 5th of December 2024, the Privacy Commission of Canada stated that data breaches represent one of the most significant threats to personal information globally. And he also noted in the 2023-2024 fiscal year, ending on March 31st, 2024, his office received over 350 reports of cyber instances. The vast majority, over 90%, were from private sector organizations. So, Mr. Davis, in your opinion, do these statistics show that cyber incidents are more frequent and more likely to occur in private sector organizations than in federal government institutions?
Thank you for the question. I'm not a privacy breach expert, and so I'm not able to offer an opinion on where breaches like these would tend to take place more often than not.
Mr. Davis, you came to provide expert testimony, and in your opening remarks, you said, quote unquote, there is no critical basis to support the notion that CRA automatic tax filing and pre-filed tax returns will further secure the taxpayer information. Based on the very, general statistic that I just provided you, how do you explain the difference between government breaches and private sector breaches?
I'm sorry, I don't see the connection between CRA automatic tax filing and potential breaches of information by the private sector. Can you clarify that for me a little?
Yeah, I'm happy to. That out of all of the incidences, 90% of the privacy breaches were from private sector organizations. Okay? 10% were from government. Would that logic not extend that private sector organizations are more vulnerable to privacy breaches?
As I stated earlier, I can't provide an opinion on statistics that I'm hearing just secondhand now, so I'm unable to make an informed judgment on that.
So, what do you think explains the difference?
Again, I can't speak or give an informed opinion on statistics that I'm hearing secondhand just now.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you this, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Davis. Can he please provide to the committee in writing the policy in the event of a breach of client data? So basically, what I'm requesting is H&R Block Canada's policy in the event of a breach of information for client data.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. Clerk's made a note of that. We'll follow up with Mr. Davis and make sure that information is supplied.